I just want to say that before we get into this, that none of these images are hacked or stolen or leaked or anything like that. They all come from official sources from the Battlefield 2042 digital art book, which I recently took a look at, and also on portfolio websites where artists have uploaded their work. And it's all directly from DICE, EA, Criterion, Ripple Effect, etc. So today we're taking a look at some concept art and exploration for Battlefield 2042. And I think a lot of it shows that the vibe of the game could have turned out completely different to what we actually got. And there's some really cool stuff in here regarding characters, some that we haven't seen yet, some that were different and changed, but also the levels in particular that I want to focus on, because it shows how gritty and authentic feeling this game actually was in the concept and exploration stage compared to what we got when the game released, which is a very sterile, clean looking feel to a lot of the levels. Now DICE have said recently in a blog that they are going back onto some of those levels and adding cover, perhaps making them look a bit more war-torn than they were. So I'm looking forward to seeing what those results are. But in the meantime, we can look back at this stuff before the game released that was being worked on and see exactly how things changed. So kicking things off, we're looking at the classes. Now, this does make me wonder, was there ever a point where specialists weren't part of the game? And I could be completely wrong with that, because we do have the AI soldiers and they are split into classes. If you take a look at them carefully, you can see the individual classes. But here's a decent look at the US and Russian classes. They look pretty badass, to be honest, not too futuristic and retaining a lot of that modern look. A more up close version of the US assault, I would presume here, and maybe that's the engineer or support, and then perhaps a different version of the assault. Looks like they've got some kind of launcher there, or maybe that's an early iteration of the grapple hook. And this here is an early concept for Falk, and this is absolutely badass. I love this, and I kind of wish, seeing this, that they'd have gone with this look for Falk instead. So she's still got the blue gloves down here, and she's still got the Surette pistol, although the final look of it is different to that. Reminds me of Ripley from Alien 3, if any of you guys have seen that. And there's another look at it here. Absolutely love this design. There's a much younger version of Falk here with the long black hair. Even that one looks a bit younger, but overall quite contrasting to what she actually looks like in the final game, which is older with the grey hair. Now moving on, this is early concept and exploration for Boris, believe it or not. And the turret looks very different here on the backpack. Reminds me of one of the characters in Iron Man, but I don't remember the name. And here's another version that looks a lot closer to what we ended up getting in the game, albeit with a different face. Now moving on, this one's quite interesting because I wasn't sure about some of these characters. So I thought that these guys here, that could be an early version of Casper. This here though, I've got no idea whether that's a upcoming seasonal character, or it could be Rao if they were going for like a Watch Dogs hacker vibe, but I'm not really into this. But then also this female character here. Now this one I think is really interesting because there's no characters like this in the game at the moment. And if we take a closer look at that, I do think this could end up being a future specialist in the game. And next up is Pake, and again, looks a lot younger here. Different face, perhaps a bit more of a stoic stance there as well. I'm kind of into that. More of a detailed look at the visor here and separate uniforms. I think that's the legendary uniform for Pake anyway. But the face definitely changed quite a lot from the concept exploration to launch. And this isn't unusual. It's common in games that stuff like this is just put together. A lot of it is thrown away. They take inspiration from a lot of it, and some of it ends up being exactly like it was in the game. Now we're moving on to a look at some of the levels here, and this is what I was talking about with the grittiness of everything. So you can see there's a soldier at the forefront here. I think maybe this is an upcoming specialist as well, or an earlier version of one. And this, I believe, is Hourglass when the sandstorm rolls in, and it just has a completely different feel and vibe to what the actual map looks like. And this is on Hourglass again, because we can see the big skyscrapers in the background there with the LED lighting, a jet in front of it. This was interesting to me. It's that same specialist, and it looks like they've got some kind of remote control bomb, like an RCXD from Black Ops Cold War, that kind of thing. So that could be an upcoming specialist too. Hourglass again here, and what I wanted to show here was just how chaotic this seems. The tornado in the game, in the final version of the game, there's no doubt for me that it's visually impressive. It changes the look and feel of the map, the weather. But as you can see here, it is picking up a lot of debris, it's picking up cars and absolutely destroying the level. But in reality, in the game, it doesn't pick anything up and it doesn't leave anything in its wake. It doesn't change the level. And I remember in the beta, it did actually pick up cargo containers because I was playing on orbital, parachuting above it, and I could see them flying around, and there were old dev stories about containers being picked up and then thrown onto snipers on hills. That just doesn't happen in the final game at all, and I think that's a bit of a shame. Now this one, I'm not sure what level this is. Could be upcoming. It potentially could be the South Korean level, Kaleidoscope. But there's a huge wave of tsunami coming in here, drowning these buildings, a giant container ship just being knocked aside by the force of these waves. And this could have been at one point some kind of levolution or weather event that didn't get put into the final version of the game. Or maybe upcoming future we could see a map that ends up like this and introduces naval warfare to the game. Next up, I think this is Kaleidoscope because we've got the thing here that falls off the building. And just take this in for a second, look at it. It looks like a war-torn location, doesn't it? It looks gritty, the weather effects, the fire in the buildings here. And Kaleidoscope in reality is nothing like this. This, to me, looks like a Battlefield game. And DICE, as I mentioned, did say that they're going to focus on Kaleidoscope first. To change that, maybe it'll end up looking like this. This, I believe, is Manifest, and I just love the whole vibe of this. We've got some AI soldiers or the original classes here. We've got Boris here firing some kind of launcher at a tank and Rao in the foreground. But again, it just has that gritty feel to it. Onto Breakaway. It would appear that there is an avalanche here. Perhaps one of the large ice shelves cracks off and it can damage you. Could have been abandoned. Maybe we'll see that down the line. And this, I think, is Renewal inside one of the tech buildings. And what I loved about this was the atmosphere of it and the lighting. Everything's turned to red and we've got these smoke things coming down from the ceiling. Now, these are in the game, these smoke things, but they just add like a really horrible cryo freeze effect to your screen. And they're really annoying, whereas it would seem that maybe in the past this just filled the room with smoke and you got this epic chaotic situation in a close quarters environment. You may have seen this one before, but I think this is gorgeous. Love it so much. The reflections, the water. Not sure what level that might be. And this one I think could be Kaleidoscope again, and maybe that plan to have the tsunami washing the boats up on shore, debris everywhere. Really cool image here from Hourglass, I want to say, and I don't know what sniper rifle this is, but I don't think that's in the game. Look at the scope on that thing, it's absolutely massive, but the vibe of it again, don't really get those kind of feels while you're playing. Renewal here, we've got the class looking soldiers here, just feels cool. Loads of debris on the ground, beautiful reflections. This is probably my favorite though, and I'm assuming this is an area of Kaleidoscope, but there are these huge satellite dishes. An almost swamp-like area down here too. You can see that the soldiers are knee-high wading, I suppose, in this area. And of course, we've got the doggo there living the dream. This one here I wanted to show you guys because you can tell that it's Kaleidoscope based on the overall look of it, the layout. But the building in the middle here is completely different. So are some parts here. And the color scheme is completely different to what we have in the final version of the game. Reminds me of the Alpha BF3 colors in a lot of ways. Discarded here just looks messed up, doesn't it? The amount of stuff on the ground, the barrels, seems like there's more machinery. Obviously we've got the cranes going up here, which that's how they look in the game. Just has a more rustic, chaotic feel to it. And this could be orbital. Maybe at some point there was some kind of fire tornado, because we've got what looks like the tornado here, or the bottom of it, and then a lightning strike. Now in the game you do get lightning strikes in the tornado and they can actually kill you if you're unlucky, but it appears that it set the ground on fire here. So maybe at one point in the past or in the future, that was a mechanic where fires could start burning and engulf parts of the level, just giving it that more war-torn feel. And wrapping things up, there's a few images here that I wanted to show you of character exploration and also just some of the details in the items and gadgets, weapons that you can find. Angel, overall design, I think pretty similar to what we ended up with, although he looks very different here with the shaved head, much more colorful as well. Kind of glad that they stuck with this color scheme instead of going for these highlights. And it would appear that the doggo remained mostly the same, although there are some subtle differences. There's a black skin that you can get that's in the game as well. I think that was from the Ultimate Edition, so you can actually change the skin on your Robo Dog. I don't know if you guys knew that. And this one here looks a lot like the Boston Dynamic Dog, doesn't it? Not sure what map this is though, so that could be a DLC map coming up. Doesn't look like Breakaway because I don't think that's snow, so watch out for that one. Look at McKay here. remained pretty similar by the looks of it. Grapple hook looks the same as it is in the game, and I think most of these skins are actually in the game as well. Obviously his face changed, but I think this is just a model that they've used to put the clothes on and explore what that might look like. Rao face definitely looks a bit more grizzled, a bit hardened than the version that we get in the game. And also look up here, that just reminds me of Death Stranding. The beacon that he has used to have 3 prongs on it, but in the final game it's much more like this with that round top. And this costume down here looks kind of badass. I've not seen that before. It kind of looks like RoboCop or something. A look here at the spawn beacon, the soft lamp. Interesting thing here is that in the game the soft lamp is handheld and you can move it around, but there is a version of it here where it's on a stationary pole. Maybe a new gadget, maybe they just decided to make it handheld in the end. Hover drone looks a bit different there too. Motion sensor looks the same. Also, I wanted to mention the Exodus cinematic. Do you remember this was released last summer, I think? And it had Irish in it and Pake, and it's just a very dark, gritty, real version of the game that's painted there. And it's quite the contrast to what we actually got in the game when it finally released. And that's it. I mean, there are some other ones in here too, but it's a really interesting look into the concept phase and where the goalposts were compared to what we actually got to. But again, plans change, things change, and concept art is there for a reason to explore. But at the same time, it is used as a vision for where you want to be. Perhaps that grittier, war-torn look would have worked a lot better here. But that's it. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, guys. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, leave a like. If you didn't, a dislike. Subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the next one.